It casts a blindingly bright light over the entire forest. The object's upper body is illuminated by a red light, while a blue light band is visible below. It is capable of flying in reverse or possessing legs. The witnesses' accounts of the peculiar object they observed in the Rendlesham Forest are as follows. These descriptions bear a striking resemblance to the term UFO. The Rendlesham Forest Incident was intended to be a case of encountering another alien following the Roswell incident in 1947. What is the reason for the increasing number of UFO enthusiasts who visit this forest? What actual events transpired, given the multitude of narratives from various viewpoints? What were the actual observations of the witnesses? Is it an extraterrestrial spacecraft or merely an error? Is it possible to draw a comparison between this incident and Roswell? Be prepared. As the video titled "The Mysterious Incident of the Roswell Rendlesham Forest" will provide the answer. Let us travel back in time to December 26, 1980, in England. The Rendlesham Forest, located approximately 13 kilometers east of Ipswich town and south of Hertfordshire, was enveloped in a frigid winter night. The Commission is the owner of this 15-kilometer-wide forest area. 2 military bases are located in this area, RAF Ben Waters in the north and RAF Goodbridge in the west. No one could have anticipated that a global earthquake would occur in such a secure location. What transpired? On that particular day, a security team at RAF Goodbridge, which was utilized by the United States Air Force during the Cold War, was conducting its duties. Jim Penniston and General John Borosh were present within the base. Suddenly, in the darkness of winter, eerie red lights appeared, illuminating the trees in the Rendlesham Forest in an unusual manner. Penniston and Borosh were taken aback, but they promptly informed the commander of the situation. They verified that a small open area near the eastern edge of the forest had been the site of an object that resembled a shot-down plane. Penniston and Borosh promptly initiated an investigation into the events they had witnessed. They promptly arrived at the location and observed the peculiar occurrences while operating the jeep. An enigmatic, luminous object emerged from the forest. It was approximately 3 meters in height and 3 meters in width, and it was shaped like a diamond. The object's surface was akin to a black crystal, but it was more smooth and blurry. Strange symbols were inscribed on its body, reminiscent of those found on statues. The object abruptly ceased to move at a velocity that defied the laws of physics while Penniston was observing it. The peculiarity was not limited to that. Despite its exceptional velocity, it did not emit any audible noise. It goes without saying that they were extremely taken aback. However, this was not the end of the story. The warehouse was significantly damaged as the unusual object flew toward it. The animals were bewildered by the intensity of the light. Borosh and Penniston followed. They observed the green and red light dissipate while suspended from a branch. The object appeared to disintegrate into the atmosphere. Returning to the confusion, both individuals were required to exercise caution when composing the incident report. What did they actually observe? How was it able to move at such a rapid pace? It is possible that they were apprehensive that the commander would not accept their claims. It was determined that they would compose a simplified interpretation. A chemical object emitting red, blue, and white light was present. However, the device vanished before it could be observed in its entirety. Did they commit an error? To date, humans have not been able to produce such an enigmatic object. Naturally, they did not make an error. The evidence is that Penniston returned to the location the following day and discovered 3 small triangles on the peculiar ground. According to his prior measurements, the width of the object is equivalent to the distance between each triangle, which is 3 meters. Burning marks were present even in the vicinity of those peculiar triangles. Subsequently, the local police arrived and attempted to investigate the marks, as they believed they could have been caused by an object. Nevertheless, the more they delved into the matter, the more ambiguous and incomprehensible it became. Additionally, those who were involved in the investigation also experienced an unusual sensation. In the forest of Rendlesham, an object emerged. The incident would not have been globally recognized if Penniston and Burroughs had not witnessed it. The peculiar object appeared to be associated with the Rendlesham Forest. Consequently, it returned. It was captured by a large number of individuals this time. 2 days later, on December 28, 1980, British Air Force Deputy Commander Charles Hart received a report regarding an unusual occurrence at RAF Goodbridge Air Base. He was highly suspicious and possessed the same inquiries as the majority of individuals at the time. What were the actual observations of Penniston and Burroughs? Hart was obliged to remain overnight in order to investigate the events that transpired outside the Rendlesham Forest as a result of this realization. In preparation for the recording of all events, he assembled a team of personnel who were equipped with night vision goggles, recording equipment, a walkie-talkie, and flashlights. General Hart directed the installation of lights in the vicinity of the crime scene to ensure the safety of individuals who were walking through the area. The entire team was made to utilize night vision equipment as a result of the sudden arrival of the flashlights. Nevertheless, this modification enabled them to identify the bruises on the trees, which indicated the presence of heat. Then, the object that Hart and his team were seeking also appeared. It is purported that the object did not originate from the ground, but rather from the south, where it flew at an alarming velocity and emitted a brilliant red light that illuminated the trees. It was an object that was suspended in the air, with or without legs. They endeavored to ascertain the consequences of a peculiar beam of light striking the ground. It appeared that the object was traveling through an area of intense heat, to the point that all of it was on fire. All 3 rays of light, which resembled stars, were visible in the sky, with 2 rays in the north and the remaining ray in the south, approximately 10 degrees from the sky, in Hart's memory. After flickering for approximately 2 to 3 hours, the peculiar lights continued to illuminate the forest before dissipating into oblivion. Hart was taken aback, and he was convinced that the rays were not deceptive. Hart and the investigation team returned the following morning to provide clarification on the extraordinary visions he had witnessed. The bruises continued to be present on the ground and in the vicinity, similar to the bruises that Borat and Penis had previously observed. Hart's team employed the U.S. military radar to conduct a more thorough examination of the bruises. The distance they recorded was 0.07 milliroentgens per hour, which was unexpected. However, they discovered 0.03 to 0.04 milliroentgens per hour in other regions. Furthermore, they discovered a comparable, diminutive hole that was situated approximately half a mile from the object's landing site. The lawyer confided in the OSI Special Investigation Office about his experiences and expressed his optimism that the inquiry would be resolved. He recorded his observations for 20 minutes and subsequently submitted an additional report to the Ministry of Defense a few days later. Afterward, Hart's report and recording were disclosed. The case quickly gained popularity, attracting a large number of individuals to the field, and analyzing the sighting of a peculiar object in the Rendlesham Forest. What was it? What was the source of the peculiar light? What was the reason for the object's frequent appearance in the Rendlesham Forest? People who believed that Hart and other witnesses had observed unidentified flying objects, UFOs, initiated an investigation. Subsequently, there were disagreements between Hart's report, a recording, and the testimony of an individual who disclosed the concealed information. Additionally, a man asserted that he had observed an unusual occurrence in the Rendlesham Forest. The individual we previously mentioned was Larry Warren, who was 18 years old, at approximately 11 p.m. Larry and his team exited the parking lot on December 28, 1980, and proceeded to the vicinity in order to observe the unusual object. He had observed anti-terrorist devices that utilized Geiger countermeasures. This is an electronic device that is extensively employed in the nuclear industry to detect and measure ionization. Larry observed that the object appeared twice in the Rendlesham Forest while observing the situation. It accelerated rapidly in a downward direction before coming to a halt and drifting approximately 6 meters from the ground. It self-illuminated at that moment. The red and blue light was previously reported. Nevertheless, the situation did not come to a halt, rather, it intensified and became increasingly ominous. The light abruptly vanished. Suddenly, an unusual aircraft appeared. However, upon closer examination, Larry was certain that it was not a plane. It was a peculiar metal block, devoid of any windows. Larry was simultaneously discovered by the anti-terrorist team and requested to retreat. They observed an animal emerge from the plane and confront the army from a distance. Additionally, it was equipped with clothing, eyes, and other accessories. Larry asserted with assurance that it was not a human, despite his lack of knowledge regarding its nature. Until 4:30 a.m., he was unaware of any additional information regarding the incident. The peculiar aircraft that he observed had ceased to move and was ascending at an alarming rate of speed at a 45-degree angle. It would be immediately overlooked if one were to blink. Larry, like Gearhart and others, did not hear any noise from the plane. After the events that had transpired, Larry was really unable to believe his eyes. The three incidents of encountering an unusual object in the Grand Olsen Forest share the same fundamental concepts. However, there are also numerous peculiarities, such as information contradictions. Therefore, which narrative is truly accurate? What was that object in England? An extraterrestrial spacecraft? Is it a plane? Or an equivalent term? The public quickly became aware of this incident. The Grand Olsen Forest Incident is the subject of nearly half of the letters regarding UFOs that are submitted to the Ministry of Defense. No changes have been made to the Ministry of Defense's position regarding the case, despite the statements made. They concluded that they did not discover any evidence of unusual objects or threats to the country. This is the reason that no additional investigations were conducted. The case was concluded. Nick Pope, an employee at the Ministry of Defense from 1985 to 2006, is the individual in question. In 1993, he was tasked with the investigation of UFO incidents and reopened the Grand Olsen case. Nick has investigated hundreds of cases of UFO sightings annually, and the Grand Olsen event is present in 5% of the cases without a plausible explanation. The genuine testimony of the witnesses is the most exceptional aspect of this meeting. Nevertheless, all of this remains in the past. Nick also clarified that the scratches on the ground are the points where military planes used to land. What are the burn marks and sparks that were observed on the Grand Olsen Road? Has there been any clarification? Nick stated that the distance appears to be significantly greater than the average. However, this does not necessarily imply that it originated from an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Consequently, there is no definitive conclusion regarding the unidentified flying object. He is of the opinion that the most logical explanation for the spaceship in question is a clandestine unidentified flying object. Nevertheless, the red and blue lights that the witnesses observed were not mentioned in Nick's explanation. Particularly, the absence of an explanation for the spaceship's extraordinary velocity and its audible noise. In the early stages of drone development, how did humans create a fast-moving object for flight? To this day, there is not a single flying object that can fly at a speed that can only be observed with the naked eye. Furthermore, it is inevitable that the majority of aircraft engines will emit noises that differ from the descriptions provided by the witnesses. Do the witnesses make a mistake? This theory has also been assessed and analyzed. It is highly probable that the witnesses mistook the peculiar light test for something that was exceedingly close in the darkness. Are you able to determine its nature? The Alfred Nest Lighthouse continues to fulfill its own mission of daylight, located approximately 16 to 18 kilometers southeast of the Rendlesham Forest. This lighthouse, which was constructed in 1792, has become a representation of maritime history. Its light is visible from a distance of 29 kilometers. As it stands at a height of 0.35 meters. This is the reason why the witnesses initially misinterpreted the incident. In addition, Hart observed an unusual ray of light on December 28, which was in the same direction as the light that Burris had observed 2 days in advance. Furthermore, it was perpetually blinking after 5 seconds. Additionally, this is the rate at which the light blinks in the direction of the Alfred Nest Lighthouse. However, once more, this theory is in direct opposition to scientific theories when there is an incident involving extraterrestrials. Studies have not yet conclusively demonstrated that the light from the lighthouse was the primary cause of this incident. Can you recall the details of the witnesses and their terrifying narrative? They observed an object with peculiar shapes and behaviors that they were unable to identify. Additionally, the light that the witnesses observed was vibrant and in motion, in contrast to the lighthouse, which was stationary. Consequently, there is insufficient evidence to substantiate this claim. It is not an unmanned aircraft, nor is it the Alfred Nest Lighthouse. What were the actual observations of the witnesses? Additionally, there are individuals who maintain that Dr. Hart and the witnesses observed the comet in space, as indicated by an additional source. Additionally, the United States and the United Nations were in existence during that period. We're in the midst of a conflict. It is imperative to acknowledge the existence of numerous space activities and surveillance activities that are associated with military and space technology. The United Nations was particularly influential during that period. Had created comets that were capable of capturing images and gathering data from space. It is possible that the comets were meticulously disguised to prevent their discovery, resulting in their peculiar shapes, as described by Burroughs and Penniston. The peculiar light is the consequence of the comets conducting data collection activities or testing new technology. Upon its discovery by the British military, it promptly fled. This theory also elucidates the gaps in space. The Rendlesham Forest is a significant area in relation to NATO military bases and nuclear experiments. Consequently, comprehending the indications of the comets is effortless. As a result of its unique geographic location, the region is susceptible to unusual phenomena, particularly the extremely high radiation levels. It appears to be logical. This theory has been scrutinized by numerous researchers, however, the outcomes remain unchanged, 0. There is no tangible evidence to verify that the comets of the UN have been responsible for this phenomenon. Furthermore, comets frequently possess fixed orbits and are incapable of flexing their bodies, as indicated by the witnesses. Additionally, there is a misconception that the majority of individuals who are interested in the subject are unable to be persuaded by any scientific theory. There is no theory that unites all of the evidence to provide a definitive answer. Is this a hoax? David Clarke issued a statement in December 2018. The Rendlesham Forest Incident is an act of retribution by the SAS. The Security Intelligence Service, SIS, is an autonomous entity. The United States Air Force is also known as the USAF. Air Force. Both forces have collaborated in numerous campaigns, particularly in the context of war and terrorist missions, and they originate from two allied countries. Nevertheless, some unofficial reports suggest that the SIS had previously conducted an invasion of the RAF base in Bengal waters. The United States was in that period. This base was still being utilized by the Air Force. This occurred in the context of security checks. However, the United States Air Force located and apprehended them. The SIS soldiers were subjected to the most severe form of punishment, which included interrogation and physical assault. The SIS gradually devised a revenge strategy in response to the U.S. military's actions. Witnesses observed the use of unusual objects and mysterious red lights in the Rendlesham Forest. In reality, those were black heli balloons that were connected to remote-controlled drones to deliver the most recent materials to the sky. The drones were activated by remote control. UFOs, which are associated with extraterrestrials, emerged as a result, causing panic among the USAF. The U.S. Air Force was obliged to commend him for devising this malevolent scheme. However, upon conducting an investigation, Clarke discovered an anomaly. He came to the realization that this was a mere ruse. This narrative is not founded on actual events. Consequently, it is impossible to verify the existence of a relationship between the SIS and the USAF. Nevertheless, these two entities maintained a close partnership in numerous global military operations, which prevented any form of reprisal akin to a war. As a result, all scientific theories have been condemned. The response continues to be rejected. Are we progressing in the wrong direction? Are there any critical details that have been overlooked? That is accurate. It has not yet been mentioned the story of Larry Williams, myself, and you. A more enigmatic narrative extends beyond the speculation that has been presented. From which object has a creature with an unusual appearance descended? You must have immediately anticipated the topic of our conversation, given that you subscribe to my theory regarding extraterrestrial life. Extraterrestrials are actually included in the evidence. The footprint of Dr. David Clarke, a UFO researcher, is visible. He was a proponent of the theory that aliens visited the Rendlesham region in 1980. David considered Larry's assertions and identified numerous peculiarities. Larry claimed that he was coerced into viewing UFO films and was subjected to brainwashing. Larry has been treated by the press as a mentally disturbed individual since then, as they have consistently rejected his narrative. Is the information that Larry observed accurate? For any reason, the military and the government are opposed to his disclosure of the truth. Furthermore, David contended that the base contains an intelligent and sophisticated infrastructure that the United States and the United Kingdom have concealed. Nevertheless, David was unable to reach a precise conclusion despite the abundance of evidence at his disposal. David also harbored reservations regarding the veracity of the situation. The Huyen-Pygastek, an independent investigation group, was established and returned to the scene that year. They traversed a few kilometers to reach their destination. The group received the results after conducting a thorough search for several days. The forest's bright lights, which were visible from a distance, appeared in front of them. There were no birds, sharks, or other wild animals present, which caused the 5 individuals to be extremely surprised. The group, however, continued to return the following night due to the unclear image. They positioned a camera in the opposite direction of the area to capture the unusual light. Subsequently, they walked a few kilometers to the front to observe the entire area. This time, there was no disappointment among the participants. The unidentified flying objects, UFOs, oscillated in the forest and returned with remarkable clarity. The group was directly overshadowed by an Apache helicopter at that particular moment. It appears that the authorities were also monitoring unusual lights in the forest, as they were concerned that any evidence would be confiscated. The group resolved to depart the forest and return in the morning. As anticipated, they and a significant number of individuals believed in the accounts of the witnesses, and eerie signs manifested. These are temporary holes. The group searched the entire video of UFOs in the Rendlesham Forest to demonstrate that they were not lying. This led a significant number of individuals worldwide to suspect that aliens were indeed present in this region and that the government was attempting to conceal their presence. The Gothic group's investigation results were widely disseminated, and the tales of peculiar objects in the Rendlesham Forest became a topic of interest. The individuals who conducted the mission to control the UFOs at RAF Ben Waters in the 1980s also disclosed numerous noteworthy details. At that time, they were employing a 60-meter range telescope to execute the mission. Certainly, an object could be transported at a rate of up to thousands of times per hour through their eyes in a mere 2 to 3 seconds. It subsequently returned to the Rendlesham Forest and halted in the vicinity of the waterfall. The UFO control staff observed and monitored the object until it proceeded directly into the forest. What was the reason for the witnesses' subsequent disclosure of their true observations? It is straightforward. During the 1980s, all reports of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, were denied without providing a specific explanation. This prompted numerous individuals to recall the Roswell incident that occurred in the United States in 1947. The final conclusion was uncertain, despite the fact that all the witnesses identified a sign of an alien invading the Earth. The rationale is uncertain. Is it possible that they concealed the information regarding UFOs? The most realistic evidence for this narrative is the inability to provide an explanation, despite the fact that the incident was more significant than ever. Let us consider the Roswell incident of the 1950s. The U.S. military successfully recovered an unidentified object that had fallen into a forest. There were even witnesses, and they discovered a fragment of it. However, all of the peculiarities were either disregarded or it was determined that it was merely a weather balloon. Since that time, the Roswell incident has been the focal point of the UFO rumor, as a significant number of individuals believed that the government was concealing the truth about aliens. The Rendlesham incident was also regarded as uncertain. This prompted both you and me to contemplate whether the government and military were aware of the existence of UFOs but chose not to disclose this information to the public. The government's decision to withhold any information was comprehensible due to the Rendlesham Forest's sensitive location. Daniel Simpson, the director of the film UFOs in the Rendlesham, was also of the opinion that the truth was being concealed. He consistently experienced an unusual sensation while filming this enigmatic forest. Simpson discovered that the underground gates were closed. he requested that the construction company operate a four-wheeler to pull one of the gates. Suddenly, a staircase descended, resembling a factory's water supply system. Nevertheless, the situation was not as straightforward as it appeared. These tunnels connected two military bases, RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bankwaters. This was not unexpected, as numerous military bases had underground facilities, particularly those associated with nuclear weapons. Simpson also mentioned that he had heard a tale about an unusual discovery at the RAF Bankwaters military base. Some buildings were rented as a result of his personal circumstances. A telecommunications team was contacted by a company in the vicinity who desired to reorganize the internet network. Special cables were observed by them upon the completion of their mission. The cables were from the 1980s and were approximately 1 meter in depth. At that time, it was impossible for humans to possess cables of such high quality and modernity. Simpson's confidence was shaken by this. The technologies at this military base were significantly more advanced than those that humans were aware of and possessed in 2015. What is the truth in this situation? Is this an attempt by the military to conceal an incident at a nuclear facility? Or is it even more concerning? Simpson and numerous others are of the opinion that the military was aware of extraterrestrials, as evidenced by the renowned UFO sighting in the Rendlesham Forest. The cable's modernity and sophistication may have been supplied to humans by extraterrestrials from outer space. Consequently, the government categorically denied any responsibility for safeguarding extraterrestrials when the experts disclosed the narrative. Conversely, the Soviet Union was the adversary, and the military possessed contemporary technologies. Or even the entire world today. The strange objects, blue and red lights, and even the creatures that Larry has observed could all be accounted for if this theory is accurate. Concurrently, it serves as confirmation that life is indeed present on Earth. There is even a location on Earth that provides technological support for humans. In the end, what is the truth? Numerous theories have been proposed to elucidate this incident. Some are founded on scientific reasoning, while others are more inclined toward speculation. Nevertheless, we are unable to provide a definitive account of the exact events that the witnesses observed. The only evidence we possess is derived solely from the testimonies of the officers. The video clips and recordings that were released have never been authenticated. As a result, it is possible that you and I will never be able to definitively determine the full extent of the Rendlesham incident. On December 26, 1980, researchers who are believers in UFOs contend that extraterrestrials arrived in the forest. Conversely, skeptics maintain that the existence of UFOs or aliens is a mere figment of the human imagination. The Roswell incident of 1947 has had a profound impact on humanity. It is possible that the events of that night were merely natural scientific phenomena, as some theories have suggested. Differing viewpoints and assertions are likely to perpetuate debates, as it is challenging to arrive at a definitive conclusion in the absence of substantial evidence supporting either perspective. I believe that the full extent of the truth regarding this case may never be fully understood. I personally find it difficult to accept the events that transpired in Rendlesham Forest. However, the ultimate result appears to be foreseen, given the numerous UFO and alien reports that are either unexplained or have inconclusive explanations, including the Roswell incident of 1947. It is still too early to determine the precise nature of the peculiar object and the beams of light that were observed by the witnesses. You may opt to subscribe to one of the theories. Or you may prefer to postpone your decision in anticipation of future investigations that will yield more definitive conclusions. Nevertheless, the world was captivated by a truly sensational event, replete with enigmatic and dramatic details. The testimonies of the witnesses constructed a narrative that was shrouded in mystery. What type of aircraft was that? From where did those beams of light originate? Were they emitted from a lighthouse, or was it all part of a well-planned revenge strategy? Or, in a more conspiratorial perspective, could those phenomena have been indicators of extraterrestrial presence? Everyone will have their own interpretation, and I am confident that you will also develop your own theory. Which explanation do you find to be the most persuasive? What specifics elicit the most curiosity or skepticism in you? Please do not hesitate to contribute your thoughts in order to facilitate a discussion and potentially advance toward the final solution. I am grateful for your assistance. I look forward to our upcoming video. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.